Hi, and welcome to another iGaming Next Power Hour. My name is Jesper Kärrbrink. It's ridiculous, but my industry outlook for 2022 starts with a Corona comment, just like a year ago. But this time in the shape of Omicron, which seems to be a more infectious but milder version of the virus, especially for us old enough to have 2 or 3 vaccine shots. We all have to agree that Corona, how strange it might sound, had a positive impact on the industry the last year with boosted growth, especially the casino part. Will it have the same impact 2022? I don't think so. Rather, what we see now is probably the new normal. And looking forward, either Corona develops to another flu strain and it really becomes the normal, or it goes south and becomes even worse. But let's save that discussion for another day. US is the new black. This I have covered so many times. But are we starting to see a kind of a slowdown? I saw that the well-known gaming investor Jason Ader was skeptical to the New York betting market with its 51% tax on GGR. Rightly so. I know from experience that 40% tax on slots revenue still can be a lucrative business, especially if you have a strong market position from the start. However, betting is a totally different industry with lower margins, and in New York, all operators are starting from scratch with huge investments in customer acquisition ahead of them. So Ader is probably right. This could be tough. And Ader is highlighting another interesting point. How long will investors be happy with the huge losses many of the US gaming companies are showing? So will 2022 actually be the year when we see a shift in the US market from focus on hypergrowth to profit? Or is this still a Formula 1 race where the team with the biggest budget takes the championship? Well, time will tell. What will happen this year though is a shift towards new kind of casino games. Slots are great, but the industry has started to realize the need for more skill-based games to attract a broader audience and to keep growing double digits. When it comes to skill-based gambling, I must say that Green Jade Games and Gameco are in pole position to continue on the Formula 1 analogy. It will be interesting to see how this pans out during 2022. Another shift is more of a back to the future trend. Most people don't realize this, but the gambling industry is historically built on huge pool games like Lotto, Keno, scratch tickets, sports pool for football and horses, etc. And I think these games will come back in new forms with faster draws, higher RTP, side games, animations, and so on, to make them appeal to a new and younger audience. And one product to look out for in this regard is PoolX, built by a team of sports betting pros to capture the football pool market worldwide. They start with a daily pool of €2.5 million, which most likely will grow fast with the pickup from players around the world, and the jackpot of €1.5 million to a single winner with 13 correct predictions. So the old school pool games going modern, well, I think that's another trend to look out for during 2022. I will finish this off with a look at Sweden and Evolution. They had a bumpy ride at the end of the year, being accused for offering their games to players outside different regulations. In fairness, this is happening most game providers, or perhaps all. And it's not the provider's responsibility to prevent non-allowed players to gamble on the brand in the regulated market. And as we know, regulations work differently from market to market as well. But if you're big, profitable like hell, listed, and in the gaming industry, you have to live with being scrutinized. More interesting is the rumors, and I want to express rumors about Las Vegas Sand or any other land-based casino group buying out Evolution. If it happens, and whoever it is buying, that deal would be the one on my top 5 list of clever deals. Imagine having a strong position on land-based and a dominant position online in the world's fastest growing market, and then taking out the synergies from that fund. Boom! And that's all for me this time. Have a great iGaming Next Power Hour.
Future Anthem launches Amplifier Game Recipes, the secret sauce to better game design. Currently, studios and operators are faced with several challenges. Studios need to stand out with successful, targeted content, and operators need to navigate through thousands of new game launches. The answer? Leverage your data, utilizing game data science to build game recipes. So, what are game recipes? They are a combination of AI, machine learning, and metadata that provide optimal features to target specific player behaviors and profiles. We work with you to design games for specific player behaviors, build a data-driven game roadmap, improve launch success rates, reduce game decay rates, grow floor share, promote new games to similar players. So, how are game recipes made? Step 1. Ingest your game data. Step 2. We normalize, enhance, and enrich it with additional metadata. Step 3. Train your data against our machine learning models run and built across billions of spins. And step 4. Learn from player and game behavior. Target games that display high levels of retention, convert new players, increase lifetime spins, and promote cross-sell. What do you get? Anthem's recipes include key information to build successful games, including volatility, RTP, theme, game features, target profit rate, and all of this. And there's more. We can work with you to generate target player lists, build promotional plans, and launch your games. Start your journey today. Learn more at futureanthem.com. Future Anthem. Amplify your game.
Hello and welcome to the iGaming Next Power Hour, where you get to power up your knowledge, your insights and your connections to help you excel in this very fast moving and exciting industry that is iGaming. My name's Oisin, Lunny. I'm a podcast host for Fortune 500 companies and an event MC for awesome events like iGaming Next coming up in Malta. I hope to see many of you there. And speaking of powering up your knowledge, insights and connections, we have two fantastic individuals joining us today from a company called Future Anthem. Welcome Leigh Nissim, who is the CEO and founder. Hey Leigh, how are you?
Very good, thank you. Very good, thank you. Thank you for the kind introduction.
Hey, you're so welcome. Great to see you both rocking the hoodies as well. A bit of branding, that's fantastic. And welcome to iGaming Next Power Hour, Chris Conroy, the Chief Data Officer. How are you, Chris?
Yeah, very well, thank you.
Fabulous. Great to see you both here. So I'm a big music fan, as anybody who shared a drink with me at iGaming Next Malta might know. I've loved music forever and I love the name Future Anthem. But Leigh, coming to yourself first, I believe you had a different name to begin with. You basically found a perfect name for your company and then you were walking around one of the big trade events in the UK and you saw a stand with the same name on it. What happened? What was the scenario and what happened next?
Well, firstly, it was a huge disappointment. So I felt like I'd given birth to something, but then had to put it down like real quick. So it took me about 3 months of angst to land on a new name. But yeah, I was at a gig with my wife and a friend at the Royal Albert Hall, and everyone just started singing this song that this DJ was playing. And I was like, oh, that's an anthem. I was like, oh, I like the name Anthem. That feels really good. Everyone very positive, begins with A, very communal, and so thought we could work with that. And then I thought about these machine learning models that we're building, and they're like anthems of the future. So hence was born Future Anthem. You do your usual things, you check if URLs are available, and they were, and no one had trademarked it, which was my initial mistake. And there you go, Future Anthem was born at the Royal Albert Hall at a reggae gig hosted by 70-year-old David Rodigan. Oh. So there you go. Future Anthem was created on that night. Maestro
David Rodigan. You have fantastic taste, sir. I love it. So that's a great backstory. Whatever the other name was, nobody cares. Future Anthem's awesome. That's brilliant that it came to you. What would be your anthem? If you had an anthem, Leigh, what would it be? Oh, good question. If I think of my anthems, not just as music, but the things that I like, I think it would have to be fitness, super focused on my fitness. I like dance music, EDM, so that's my grab to my teenage years. And then people also know that I try and look after my hair, which is another one of my anthems. So they're all my three combined, if you like, to how I stay young and happy and
and good.
Outstanding. So, Todd Householder, if you're watching, you have competition in the hair department. Maybe we can have a iGaming Next Idol Award for the best hair in iGaming. Let's see. Listen, making no promises, but I think it would be fun. And Chris, how about yourself? Have you got similar anthems, different anthems? What would be your anthem?
Yeah, I think our marketing team put this out on LinkedIn at one point. I don't think they asked me, but I think they ascribed football, beer, and techno to me. And probably just to clarify for Leigh, I keep trying to tell him like EDM should not be described as dance music. I don't quite know what it is. So when we talk techno, we talk like proper music like Jeff Mills and Richie Houghton back in the day and things like that. I think the anthem for me was Knights of the Jaguar by somebody called DJ Rolando on Underground Resistance. So yeah, Leigh can maybe check that one out and maybe update his taste somewhat.
Fantastic. I see there's going to be a club night for Future Anthem at some stage. That's brilliant. What a tune. I love it. Last time I heard that was on a rooftop of a hotel in Ibiza a few years ago. Just an absolute anthem. Right. So anyway, we know a bit about where you're from, what you like, what makes you tick, but tell us a bit about Future Anthem itself, the company. What's the elevator pitch? Who wants to jump in there? Leigh, have you got a good elevator pitch there?
Yeah. Well, I mean, it's always developing as an elevator pitch, but really we hone it down to player experiences. So what we're aiming to achieve is to listen to the data that's going through the industry and that these vast casino games are producing, really lock onto it and do great things with it and to create. So we focus on personalizing player experiences, trying to help players have a more sustainable and a safer play experience, and also to use the data that's coming from the games to help studios and operators build better games and better gaming products. So really it's using this fragmented, scattered data set that sits within inside casino and helping use it to create these predictive patterns and insights into player behaviors. So that's what Future Anthem stands for and what we're doing in the industry.
Fantastically. I think that, there's a lot to be said for, listening to the data rather than, intuition, make decisions based around data and, what's more important than giving your customers what they want, protecting them and giving them an awesome experience. So it's great. 100%.
Yes. And just to be clear, it's not just about the analysis of the data. We're really focused on creating the predictions and the AI that can intervene with a consumer to improve that consumer experience. So, we were very clear when starting the business, it's not a consultancy that analyzes your business. It's about taking that interaction to improve that player experience. And that's a really important leg within what we do.
Totally. That's absolutely brilliant. Great. Well, I'm going to be asking you for places to look for more information a bit later. But first, you do also generate your own data as well. You have the State of Online Gambling survey. So you're kind of reaching out to the industry and getting their opinions and making sense of it all and presenting the data back in a very easy to digest stage. Why did you launch your own survey to make your own data? And what's the most important thing that you've learned from last year's survey so far?
So we just felt there was a bit of a gap and an opportunity to take a bit of a check on how the industry thinks. And I've been very privileged from my time, running IGT and SG's digital businesses at a couple of different points to work across the industry. So it just felt really appropriate to go and ask the industry about what they're thinking, their opportunities and their challenges. And one of the things that jumped out last year was that over 70% felt that the improved use of data was one of their key growth and focus areas for 2021. We obviously did this in the beginning of last year. And so along with launching new products, new markets, as you'd expect, things like personalization, real-time automation came out loud and clear. So we really wanted to launch another version this year to really build on last year's that focuses on those core topics and principally how you can use data to improve and grow your business.
Fantastic. So there's a survey out at the moment. Can people take part still? Is that on your website?
It's on our website. We publish it on LinkedIn regularly. And there'll be a link at the end of this that you can use to download. It's very short. We've kept it, intentionally focused, and I think you can win. I think it's AirPods that are being given away as
Sweet.
prizes for people who enter.
Oh, fantastic. Okay, want to win some AirPods and help the industry get better? Get yourself over to Future Anthem's website. We're going to post a link at the end. And coming over to yourself, Chris, now you moved to Future Anthem after 7 years of running data science at one of the biggest operators in the gaming sector. So why did you move? What inspired your move to Future Anthem?
I think the key thing for me was, I had really good opportunities in that role, and we did, have good technology to work with. But honestly, it was really difficult to really change things for the player. The kind of the process from data coming in to maybe understanding it to building some models to getting something live was measured in kind of months and years, not days and weeks. And it's a bit of a cliche, but very true. And also, real kind of like legacy to kind of like deal with, and honestly, I think just quite difficult to, the rate of change was slow. I think that's the best thing to say. And I guess for me, I was actually on the way out of the sector, but before I bumped into Leigh. That was kind of, I guess a lot of people have these stories in gambling now where they were, just as you thought they were out, they pulled you back in, and it was a bit like that, right? I felt like I'd done what I had to within this sector, and I wanted to really focus on working in an actual technology business to an extent, and kind of met up with Leigh, and he was in the process of building a technology business, and the kind of stars aligned, and here I am.
Fantastic. Well, I think that's good news all round. That was a very good decision and a nice bit of serendipity there. But from your perspective of a data scientist, what are some of the key areas you're looking at within all of that data that you work with at Future Anthem? Yeah.
So I guess for us, to simplify it all, we have products in 3 core areas, that cover 3 core areas. Personalization, which, everyone in the industry knows all about, right? And personalization isn't just about, giving the player the correct games in the lobby, even though that's very important. For us, it goes right through a player life cycle. When should you give a player a free spin? When should you give them a bonus? When should you actually just leave them alone? And really understanding that. So it's a much more holistic view. Safer play and safer gambling. And again, using much more latent data, real-time data to understand when players may be at risk and creating intervention points. And then really helping to understand just how players play games and how games perform, and building that out into, on the one hand, and especially with a lot of studios work with, products that help them understand their games and the real low level behaviours within them. But then that builds out to product design. So it's almost like once you understand your current games, then you can use that data to help you build the next set of games and the games of the future. So those are the 3 core areas that we can deliver products within.
Right. And, again, from your kind of scientific, your data science perspective, could you take us under the hood a bit of what you're doing within those key areas? What is your approach to working with data?
Yes, I guess you can always split it into 2 parts, and I think it's just getting the 2 to join together is always the biggest challenge for businesses. One of them is just about the data, right? That the volumes are big, and we kind of laugh about it, but as the business grew, our kind of unit of measurement went from the millions to the hundreds of millions to the billions, and that all happened quite quickly. So that fundamentally is just a big part of technology and infrastructure. You cannot manage billions of data points in a SQL database. I mean, you can if you want to, but it won't take you very far. So there's a big part of the technology, and we focused a lot on how to build an architecture that they can manage this. So, but that's just the building blocks, right? So you can build all the technology and you bring in a good data team. The next part of it, and a bit that we focus massively on, is like how to kind of like create a view on that data that allows a data scientist to work with it. And the best example I can give on that is, there's how many 100 different game suppliers that a typical operator has on their website. They all broadly provide casino games that work in a similar way, but the data that they all provide looks very, very different. So there's quite a big set of just trying to create some level of commonality across that is really, really important, and we spend a massive amount of time on that. Something as simple as, what's the volatility of game X compared to game Y? But the studio that builds game X tells you it's 4 out of 5, and the studio that builds game Y tells you it's 7 chilies. So that doesn't mean anything to a consumer. So so we would build consistent metadata across these things is the next part. But then, the final part, and probably the most important part, right, is domain understanding. And there's a cliche around data science that is often true, that data scientists, in many businesses don't have a good understanding of the business. So they're trying to build these models and they don't understand the outputs. And we focused a lot on really building a data team that really understand these businesses. So, the data scientist that builds a model to, identify what's the next best game for a player on a casino website actually understands that player journey and understands that game and understands that, a 5x3 slot game with, cascading wilds is very different from a retail focused slot game with, X or Y on it. So, that domain knowledge joined on to all of the kind of data expertise is really the kind of sweet spot.
Absolutely. It's not just data, and a data scientist will work with any data. It's sort of like you're bringing the expertise from the sector there, 7 years yourself. I know you brought together a fantastic team, but in terms of a client coming to you and you're onboarding them and they give you a bunch of data, in layman's terms, what happens to their data when they start working with you, for instance?
So I guess in layman's terms, we put it through a process to turn it into something that we already know is inside it, if that makes sense. So the best example is, we get a data set from Oisin, Lunny casino. We've never seen it before. It's a whole load of JSON files, and it looks all a bit strange. But we actually know that, players are making stakes and the game's got a certain number of features and etc. So we kind of know what we need to figure it into. And ultimately all we're doing is translating that within our internal process into a structure that we need. And once it's in that structure, our team can start to build models against that and we can kind of process it through. And I guess, we have a set of, models that feed our product. So it's like for a new client, and I guess one of the biggest advantages company like us can bring is, we already have a recommendation engine, we already have these safer play algorithms. So once we've figured out their data, we can get them up and running really, really quickly. And I guess that's the key, right? It's like, we spend a lot of time just figuring out the data, but once that bit's been done, everything else can kind of run.
Very good. So you're kind of, cleaning the data, getting the house in order, and then applying that expertise, that data science expertise on top of it. Brilliant. Absolutely great. So Leigh, I'm going to come back to yourself now. We've heard about, what's happening with data. We've heard about the future Anthem approach. What kind of opportunities, data-driven opportunities, do you think there are in the sector that the folks tuning in today should know about?
For future Anthem or for the clients themselves?
Oh, well, for the clients themselves, it's like, what would be the opportunity for clients working with yourself in terms of, why should they be looking at data in 2022 and beyond?
Yeah. So what we find is that certainly in the gaming businesses of the clients that we're working with, there's just this hugely diverse ecosystem of games. An operator can publish 3, 4, 5, 6,000 games, right? And the opportunity to kind of push the right game on that page is really, really, quite diverse and quite hard. Gathering all that data, chomping through it, and coming up with the right recommendation for the player in that limited real estate and to personalise is what we find is the business often focused on new markets or a new wallet for a new market or whatever it might be, and so some of the time and attention into this gaming area, which is still a very lucrative part of the industry. So really using the data that an operator has at their disposal to continue to refine and find those nugget games in their mid-tier that they can promote better, understand their player behaviours, and all really with that rich data that's going through their ecosystem, which might be quite spread, which is why some of their challenges of bringing that together in one place. So helping grow and achieve market share by really retaining players better. I think is an obvious one, and for studios, really, studios sit on this latent data asset that that they might be using at various levels of sophistication. We've seen all levels, and really, few are genuinely using it to create data-driven roadmaps. And we've developed not just the data engineering processes around that data, but methodologies to cluster games into groups, to portfolio manage, identify gaps, and really target game design. And again, the operators benefit from that, because when you take these games to the operator with data to back up why you've built the games and who you're targeting, it's really two-way. And I think that kind of goes to my third area, is we believe that there's lots of opportunities in the middle. These relationships are very healthy usually between operator and supplier, but there's still these suppliers accounting for big chunks of floor share, within an operator, and they've both got different data sets. One's got much more on the consumer, one's got much more on the transaction, and we find that there's a merge opportunity in the middle to bridge between the two that can really help them both. So we're independent. We sit in the middle of that chain, increasingly between operator and studio. So I think just 2 or 3 areas there. Around improving the player experience, making more of your data for design and performance, and then really just trying to join the dots up to improve the player experience for everyone.
Absolutely,
okay.
Fantastic. And what? Yes, Chris.
Okay, just to ask, I think there's just one example just to kind of crystallise that, and I guess just a bit of flavour. But I think that bit about what often the operator can see compared to what potentially sits inside the studio data and how it can join together. A great example, so we take a typical slot game. Slot games obviously have features, right? And when you analyse the data and you really understand it, you start to, and again, like most people in the industry know this, right? Players often play slot games, and what they're really trying to do is trigger the feature. But if you look at a typical gambling operator data set, they see the stakes that the player made, and they see all the payouts, and they see the game they're playing on. They don't actually know if the player managed to trigger the feature or not. They might be able to imply it, they may be able to see that they won a decent multiplier in a session, but typically they won't see that. But potentially sitting in the kind of on the studio side is actually the information about how the player actually did or didn't trigger the feature, and these are so fundamentally important to player behaviour and experience. Again, trying to joining those type of things together, is so important. But I think the other thing, maybe just to give, if it's okay, my kind of lens on that question about why is data such a big deal for the sector, especially now. And I would almost say, and this may sound a bit glib, you could almost, of all the things we've talked about today, and I think of most of the data opportunities that people are looking at out there, you could almost crystallise it all down into a single word of personalisation. And you could, there's an argument that says everything that you're trying to do is just personalisation, and you can actually include safer gambling in that, and this is really important for me to try and explain it correctly. And that at the moment you would have, in most places, you've got a team over here might be looking at personalisation, and then a team here is looking at safer gambling. But true personalisation would say that from the moment that the player joined the casino, you start to understand them. From the moment that they have the first session, you start to understand their behaviours, and you start to be able to recommend to them the things that they may be interested in, etc. And if you truly understand that player over their life cycle, you can intervene really early on when you start to see that the play might be changing, and you start to see that the play is different from what it used to be, and making that really early intervention to say, not that the player's got a problem or that you're necessarily worried about, to say, do you know, Oisin, that, in the last week, your typical session length is 30 minutes, and normally you only used to play for 10 minutes. Do you know that this week, you spent €200, and actually normally you only spend €50? And if you really do that right, that's basic. That's taking it away from this, the safer gambling thing where we think you've got a problem, and taking it in a much more healthy arena of we understand you as a player. We're really personalised, and last week, we told you that we think you'd really love this new game. And we also told you that we think, here's some free spins because we know that you had a really poor RTP experience one day. And then when we come and tell you in a really personalised way that you've started acting differently to what we expected, and are you sure that's okay? Surely a player's going to have a much higher propensity to respond to that than, another message about what responsible gambling tools might be available. So I think it's really important to think about that. And if I'm being really honest, I think it's really difficult for most businesses to work in that way because they do tend to be quite siloed. And even if you think about it, business school 101, let's think about your business verticals. And if you think about business verticals, it becomes really difficult to deliver that quite holistic player personalisation. So I think for me, it's really about how we can truly do personalisation. And we would argue if you do personalisation really well, you can also develop a much safer, gambling arena.
Absolutely. I mean, the holy grail of marketing is often referred to as a marketing segment of one, but you're actually doing like product development to a customer of one, a customer journey to a single person. It's all based on data and feedback, and it's iterative. So you're learning as they evolve the relationship with the company. So that's just, it's kind of holy grail stuff. But, from more of a kind of stepping back operational perspective, you spoke about pieces of data coming together there, and that kind of brings to mind, what happens with mergers and acquisitions. And of course, it's a hot topic. There's a lot of them at the moment. Regulation is a massive issue as well. So do you, come across scenarios, Chris, from a data scientist perspective, that you have to kind of wade in and sort out different data lakes or whatever it is and kind of unify them? And how does that relate to things like mergers and acquisitions and regulation and reg tech?
Yeah, I guess we see it not just in terms of mergers and acquisitions, but just almost in general. So what we see is that we see a lot of different data sets, a lot of different parts of the industry, and yet they all look very, very different to each other, but they all fundamentally describe the same things. So what that tells you is that there's just no level of kind of consistency, commonality, and yeah, that's where a lot of the challenge becomes. And absolutely, clearly, I think everybody knows there's been one or two M&A activity in the industry over the last few years, right? And I think it's that classic scenario where, within the pitch and within the pitch decks you could put together, it's like, and the efficiencies over here will be X. And the reality is, when you try and put two different data operations together, it more becomes a big challenge and a big cost rather than necessarily an efficiency. So I think it's a massive kind of like a question for the industry about how to create more commonality, such that when these M&A activities do happen, they can be more seamless. And I think it's well known in the industry that some of the ones that have happened in the past, it took a few years to figure it out, which is kind of madness when you think about it.
Mm. Yeah, indeed. And
I think yes. Also the regulatory aspect, will continue to grow. And I think the regulatory expectation on operators and studios to use their data to improve and manage the gambling experience, again, is only going to grow. And we're seeing that in the UK at the head of the curve, and also there's been a lot of talk about data-led and data evidenced approach to the new Gambling Act, and we're certainly involved in some of those conversations around supporting the industry with those data points. I mean, we're very fortunate. We've seen now 45 billion bets in our platform, so we've pretty much seen every game, almost all territories, and have normalised all that data. So the opportunity to help the sector with data in advance of the Gambling Act is high, and our customers, are in those conversations. So we're definitely supporting our customers in that conversation. And I think, like I said, there's going to be an expectation from the regulator that everyone ups their game. And I think really, fundamentally around this, which we haven't really talked about, is just how technology is facilitating this. I mean, again, we feel very fortunate. We have a very deep partnership with Microsoft where we get active support from them. We speak to them every fortnight. We're on their growth program. They help us technically. They've helped us with some financially, with some cloud credits and some other things. And so it's not just a talking game. That they really are acting to help us grow and scale. And again, we're leveraging their best of breed technologies and with other partners like Databricks. So again, the technology and the advances in technology are creating the environment for us to achieve, and by default helping our customers do more. So technology is really oiling this wheel across everything globally, which is super helpful. Yeah,
totally. I mean, the world is moving so fast. The world of data is moving so fast. Digitization is like one of the main topics in every industry. If somebody is watching this, Leigh, and they're kind of thinking, I should really be getting a handle on all of this data stuff. It sounds like it's going to unlock a lot of competitive advantage, et cetera, et cetera. How do they start? I mean, where does that journey begin?
For us, it's just pick up the phone or send an email, because not many people are picking up the phone these days. I was going to phone somebody the other day on his mobile, and maybe I should send him a WhatsApp first to tell him I'm going to give him a call. It felt really odd. But anyway, I'm still old school and like to pick up the phone. Get in touch. We're intentionally very friendly, very open, and very transparent, because that's what we want to bring to the industry. When you look at Anthem, you've got a fantastic team with both operator and studio experience inside our business, and we've seen this has been some of the eye-opening things for me, is just seeing the different stages of data maturity all these businesses are at. You got some who have got real-time data flowing through their veins, and some who just can't get their data and it's stuck in different places. And now that we've worked with all, we've got solutions to help each, and also to kind of bring these guys up to here and help these guys manage themselves efficiently and share best practices of what we're doing and they're doing, and collaboration. So really, leverage us and our expertise from what we're seeing, both from Microsoft and from the industry overall. I mean, you can go and read online, and actually, we run this program called Tune Into Data, which, honestly, we're just getting going on, but it's designed to be a framework for data-orientated people to come together to have a conversation around data and the best use of data. So we run a couple of webinars, and we've got some plans to do more with it, but we're keen to create that environment where you can have that data conversation, because it's common to all these businesses. That's the great thing about the gambling industry. It's actually a business that's built upon data at its heart, with entertainment, with regulation, with tax, and all these interesting things that flow through it. So pick up the phone, send an email, get in contact, and we'd be happy to have a conversation with you on wherever you are on your journey.
Fantastic. Well, we started this Power Hour session with a musical metaphor. We ended up hearing that you actually organise data jams, which is just fantastic. I love it. It sounds like an open invitation that a lot of people are going to be very intrigued by. So thank you both so much. Thank you, Leigh, Nissim and Chris Conroy from Future Anthem, for joining us here on the iGaming Next Power Hour. And folks tuning in from home, if you want to check out the Future Anthem approach, do check out the data-driven white paper via their website. And we're going to share this as well, I believe. It's called Amplifier, appropriately enough, and you can see the way in which Future Anthem works with data in a video that I believe we're going to play now if we have time. It's especially for game studios, so it's a great example of the kind of power that you can unlock with data, and by giving Leigh and Chris a shout. Thank you all so much for joining us. My name's Oisin Lunny. I will see you next time.
Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Hi everyone, my name is Jake Evans. I'm the managing editor at iGaming Next, and it's my pleasure to introduce to you Vsevolod Lapin, who is the head of product at the Malta-based game studio Playson. We've got a really exciting Power Hour session lined up for you today. So first of all, Vsevolod, welcome. How are you doing?
Hi Jake, nice to see you. All good, thank you. How about you?
Yeah, I'm fine, thank you very much. Great to have you with us today. I was just on your LinkedIn page, actually, doing some research, and I noticed you used to work for the Coca-Cola company before you joined the gaming industry. How did you go from like fizzy drinks to online gambling?
Well, that's even more fun, right? Actually, I was always interested in working in the tech industry, and I was always passionate about gaming. And gambling is very much an epitome of gambling, right? So you can go wrong with that. And I joined Playson in 2017, and it's going well so far with this company.
Yeah, good. That's a nice little introduction. And you're right. If you're into technology, then there's few better sectors to be in than online gambling, I would say. Yeah. So yeah, just looking a bit more closely at the topic we've got for you in this Power Hour session. It's going to be on the topic of player retention, and we're going to look at the past, present and future of promotional tools and gamification in slots, which are all really designed to inspire customer loyalty. But yeah, we're gonna get some of your insights on that, Several, I think, later today. So if we start off with the basics, it's probably the best place to start. Why do you think player retention and customer loyalty are important in slots?
Well, of course, this is the lifeline to long-term survival of any business. And of course, building on the retention and maximizing the lifetime value is what everyone is fighting for today, because the share of attention you can get of any player, any customer basically, is getting so low with so much content. So obviously keeping this small share of players that usually contribute the majority of your revenue is highly critical. And we at Playson understand that, and we know, for example, that just 3% of our players contribute about 40-50% of our total bets. So understanding this loyal base, retaining them is what will actually is extremely vital for any kind of business, but in gambling especially so with the amount of content we see today.
Yeah, that's true. I think, that's a situation all entertainment businesses are facing at the moment. I think I read somewhere recently that the average sort of online savvy user has an attention span of about 8 seconds these days. I think TikTok is probably to blame for that, to be honest. But yeah, it's a similar issue in gaming as well. If we stick with slots, obviously, by their very nature, they're gamified to a degree. They're obviously a game. Which overlaps with gambling, and that's a huge part of why people enjoy them and keep coming back to play them. If we look at gamification as a kind of retention tool, why do you think that's important to add kind of further layers of gamification to a game?
Yeah, sure. You basically frame it really in a very right way, that slots are already gamified, and we should not forget that players are coming for slots to play slots, not to play just engagement tools. And at the core of everything lies the great game mechanics, math, art, great user experience, and this will always lie at the core. And everyone is talking about a lot of things that will change in the future, but we also need to remember things that will not change for a while. And these basics of slots, these parts of the equation will not change. However, with this shortening attention span and the number of disruptors, such as different forms of entertainment that are fighting for attention, something needs to be added on top, and especially so in the past few years when the content so much moved into the mobile, and the mobile actually changes the equation a lot, because you get shorter sessions but more often, and you get this shorter attention span. So as a player, what are my reasons to visit a particular content more often, to play a particular game more often? So the engagement tools actually provide this additional reasoning for me. So usually a good engagement tool provides an on-top benefit. It's not something that is taken from the core game, which is really bad usually, but something that goes on top and makes you even more interested in getting back, not only for the core gameplay, but to get any additional prizes, bonuses, some excitement there. So yeah, engagement tools are actually adding another layer and reasoning to come back more often and fight for attention. Yeah,
totally. I think, I was just thinking about what you're saying there about different gamified modes to get the player to keep coming back. I don't know if you're familiar with the word game Wordle that seems to have completely exploded recently. You just guess a 5-letter word each day, and you only get the chance to guess one word every day, but that's enough to keep people coming back day after day and posting their results to Twitter. I don't know if they've even managed to, monetize that platform yet, but they've kind of by accident invented the perfect retention tool, haven't they, to keep people coming back to try and beat the challenge. Yeah, it's good fun. It'll frustrate you and delight you in equal measure, I think. So I'd recommend it.
That sounds like a good product.
Yeah. So if we talk about technology, I mean, we've already said, the gaming sector is right on that cutting edge of cutting edge technology. I mean, especially in the world of slots. Did the pandemic make any difference to some of those user habits that you're talking about? You said obviously huge share of players on mobile, and we know that mobile gaming, online gaming, particularly online casino, kind of just soared during the pandemic. Were you able to take any learnings from that?
Yeah, of course. Obviously, the sheer number of players coming into gaming and gambling during the pandemic is just staggering, and majority of those players are coming to play on mobile, and this shifted the balance towards mobile even more. So providing really pitch perfect, great mobile experience, great mobile UI became really crucial, and in my opinion, one of the best innovations the industry can provide, and actually it might sound a bit boring, but really clear-cut mobile experience, and providing really clear-cut mobile UI. So the good UI is the UI you won't notice. So it should be lightweight, it should be very invisible for you, because you should focus on the core aspect of what you're playing. And this was one of the actually big challenges in the team, and we focused really hard to push out the latest version of UI as soon as possible to complement that. And the other thing is that's actually impacting a lot, and it's a bit far from the moonshot technologies, in my opinion, because the biggest changes will come with things that sound a bit more boring as well, is of course, content delivery speeds, the internet speeds, the advent of 5G. Basically, ideally, would like to have games loaded immediately, and this also contributes to this attention span factor. And of course, the mobile devices are getting better, the screens are getting better, so utilizing all that and using all this innovation smartly, not just chasing moonshot technologies, I think will be the name of the game in slots as well, to revolve around the core aspect of the game, which is actually good visuals, good math.
That's actually a really, really fascinating perspective, because, you know, this industry is obviously super competitive, and I think a way for companies to differentiate themselves is by, you know, shouting about the newest product they've got, or the most exciting feature. But what you say sort of counteracts that a little bit, and that is the core product needs to work perfectly, right, for people to be interested in it, and for people to keep coming back. They're not going to do that if it's faulty or if it's a lagging user experience. So that's the priority for you, is it?
Of course, naturally. We understand that, as I said in the beginning, the things will not change for players are the things that they actually kept coming even to land-based casinos even before the online gambling was a thing. So this is the pure excitement of online slots, and we're trying actually in our product strategy to transfer this land-based excitement into the world of 21st century experience of mobile, but the core aspects remain the same. So the games, good games, have to be simple and somehow familiar, but also with the right pinch of innovation, that it's not actually alienating players, but adding something on top. This helps a lot. But also, I think at the same time, the engagement tools is where you can shout a bit louder, because this is where you can go a bit more crazy as a game provider. We have seen some examples with that, and since this good differentiator, and sometimes not as strictly, let's say, defined in the local regulations, this provides some more freedom to actually provide excitement, even there is more limitations driven by regulations. So what we're seeing is, of course, after the pandemic started, this crazy 6-digit, 7-digit prize funds going with the promotions. For us, in Playson specifically, tournaments, network tournaments are the regular thing that we do several times per month, with also very high prize funds ranging to 5-6 digits, and of course investing heavily into some more moonshot types of engagement tools like Cash Blast and Wheel of Fortune that provide this in-game currency that you can spend in other games. So yeah, this is where you can go a bit more crazy than in just slot games, but the combination of both should be the key to what players like, right?
Yeah, that's really interesting, and I think you're right that, you know, the pandemic, whilst it was good overall for the online sector, it also drove a lot of regulation, didn't it? You know, politicians were noticing the amount of online casino gameplay that was going on, and that brought in regulations in Sweden. We've obviously seen Germany clamp down on slots as well. And you think, you know, these gamification tools and these retention tools are free to play, aren't they? So there's perhaps a little bit more room for creativity there, shall we say?
Yeah, exactly. For us, regulated markets are a very big focus. And for example, our presence in Italy, Greece is extremely important, and engagement tools were instrumental in engaging more players and engaging them better. Because, for example, using our Wheel of Fortune or using our tournaments, either it's a short-term campaign-based tool or a long-term retention-based tool, it was very important to give some additional reasons to come back. Especially so with, just as you mentioned, Sweden, especially when there is a factor of this seasonal or limited time additional limitations, which Sweden has recently implemented for the summer period to also limit the exposure to the gambling of the players. So by adding this extra and not basically asking a lot back from the players and giving you additional reasons, let's say, to earn these additional coins that you can spend in the game, is something that players should be very happy about, because this is not a limitation. This actually adds another degree of freedom into the game itself.
Yeah, totally. And virtual currency is something that's a very hot topic at the moment, right, in the whole wider sort of digital online entertainment space. And it's obviously something that you offer to your customers as well, alongside the leaderboards and everything else. How does the kind of virtual currency, how do you see that working in slots? And have you noticed any kind of overlap between slots players and those that are maybe interested in disruptive technology and cryptocurrency, that kind of thing?
Well, cryptocurrency by nature is a form of gambling, shall we say so. Binance, Coinbase are probably one of the biggest gambling platforms. So
the trading platforms.
I cannot say about this overlap immediately, but for sure the role that virtual, let's say, internal currency can play in the games is instrumental, because it provides an additional justification to be within the ecosystem of a particular game provider, of particular games. Even if a game provider has different games, so for example, we can have more volatile games, more classic games, still by having this amount of coins and having a possibility to earn coins in one game, spend coins in a different game is very important for us right now. We're just in the beginning of this path, because we have this system of collecting coins with a Wheel of Fortune, and just one game which is called the Wheel of Fortune, where you can immediately win either more coins or additional real cash as a player. This provides opportunity to add much more gamification within this module, and actually this provides a really positive link to the game provider for you as a player, because you have something more than just your usual deposited balance basically there, and more reasons to come back.
Yeah, okay, that is interesting. And what would you say are like some of the use cases for this virtual currency? Obviously, that's almost another learning that's been taken from video games. You think of the biggest franchises, right? So you have FIFA Ultimate Team, for example, you get virtual coins where you can buy players, or in Warzone or in Fortnite, you get coins where you can kind of upgrade your equipment and your weapons and everything else. So what can slots players use it for?
Well, that is completely different but also interesting angle of personalization, which we have not dived into before.
Yeah, that's true.
I'm not sure if this might have a lot of traction with slots, because slots are not, let's say, online slots are not really a social thing, because in land-based you might be competing with other players on the game floor who get more luck, but slots are sort of more individual experience, right? Not until the moment you're playing in some tournament, but usually it's an individual experience. So I think this virtual currency is not about so much of personalizing the game, but also getting some additional benefits, playing some additional, let's say, meta game, having access to some additional modes, converting it to bonus mode with maybe some really cool preset of multipliers in the beginning of free spins, for example. So I think it's about that, maximizing your enjoyment as a player, but not so much about personalization for the sake of socializing with other players, because I don't think that's an insight in the online slots that much.
Yeah, that's again a very interesting perspective, and interesting to hear you say that, because you say, like, if you're in Las Vegas, you're going to be competing with other players, and we have this kind of view of slots it's not isolating, but it's very much an individual thing, right? It's the individual on their mobile phone, and they're playing their favorite slot, and they kind of keep themselves to themselves. But increasingly, we're seeing some companies try to bring a social element into slots, aren't we? And I'm sorry for going off script slightly here, but there are companies that are trying to make a streaming platform, for example, of just slots players, and then people on the chat can interact and follow their favorite players along. Do you think that's developing? Do you think that's a gimmick? I mean, what is your personal perspective on that kind of? thing?
I think globally what we're seeing is this huge moving trend towards meta storytelling. So it's not so much about playing, but also watching other people playing, and the streaming element here is in slots is very big. And I think the streamability of the content, how interesting it is not only to play but stream and watch your content streamed, is a big factor which we're also learning how to work with, because this means a slightly different approach to how you develop games, to keep the basics in the right way, to keep the game beautiful engagement, but also add something on top that will make it more interesting to watch. But in my opinion, this does not mean that it makes the whole experience more social. It means that there are more opportunities to engage, because of course when watching the, let's say, streamer, you have an opportunity to engage with other players, but deep inside each player is actually craves to get a share of this huge win, to get a share of this luck, to compete with other players, and these social elements, I think, is very challenging to integrate completely into slots. But this meta storytelling and streamability, and also the discussion of, let's say, games on popular resources like Big Win Board is also a part of the experience. But at the core, I think it's very individual experience, even if it connects on some other areas. Enthusiasts that really love playing slots.
Yeah, I mean, that was an amazing answer, Vsevolod. Well done. As I know I put you on the spot there slightly, but yeah, really fascinating insights there. Obviously, just with that previous question, we touched on the kind of competitive element between players, but obviously with slot studios, there's a hugely competitive element between the different studios and the different companies, right? It's a really saturated market. They're all trying to differentiate. Yeah, you know it better than anyone. I just wanted to give you this sort of part of the Power Hour to maybe showcase some products in the Playson portfolio that you're particularly proud of, but also then to, maybe bring in some of your competitors, shine a light on some innovation in the industry at a wider level that you really like or you're really fascinated by.
Yeah, so on one hand, what we see is that for the last several years, there were no huge disruptions in terms of core product mechanics on the market, to be honest. And everyone is trying to, of course, find this disruption, but the core elements are the same. And what we're trying to do is, when we're creating games, is to keep these innovations simple and really familiar for the players. So, for example, our Solar Queen game has these 10 spin cycles. So as a player, you have a very clear path towards seeing how you can get the full screen of wilds if you get lucky enough. And you understand when exactly that will happen. So this element of control, and this also fights back on this factor of reducing attention span, because you understand when to expect what exactly. You show this clear path to the player. The same, for example, with our Buffalo Power game, where we have a jackpot mechanic connected to a specific power symbols that you gather. And you know exactly when the jackpot is triggered and which jackpot is triggered. So it's not good old times when you're at the hands of random. You need to show the clear path to the players. And of course, there are really beautiful examples of similar innovations on the market. So, for example, relaxed gaming with a money train was very revolutionary a couple of years ago. And also, on the other hand of the spectrum, is not so much about product innovation, but innovation of storytelling around the game. I think is, of course, No Limit City, which creates the story around the story. So there are games, but there is also a story of the brands of No Limit City, and they're doing a great job in disrupting and being really like bad boys on the neighborhood by disrupting the whole scene. And I think it is a really good energy coming from this push. Everybody is also mining for next big thing, like the next megaways, and there are some examples of scalable things like InfiniReels, but I'm not sure the market and the industry has found this next big thing yet. But everyone is looking, and if anybody knew the formula, we would also be there, and we're also keeping on looking. But the good thing that players are receiving a lot of content, and a lot of content is getting traction. And we, of course, really believe that this innovation only comes from teams that really are loving the product, that's what they do. So for us, it means putting a lot of really talented people in the same room, even if it means the same Zoom room, to create a product across different functions. So, for example, it's not only about game designers thinking about concepts, it's about the whole team engaged, including mathematicians, developers, etc. So I think this is the name of the game to create next innovations.
Yeah, definitely. Like you say, it's a team effort at Playson, and almost a team effort industry-wide. As the more, you know, your competitors come up with innovation, the more it inspires you to work at your best as well. Yeah, a really exciting industry to be involved in right now, and I think that's actually a good place for us to end this Power Hour, Vsevolod. I mean, it's been a pleasure speaking to you. I'm sure our listeners are going to get some really valuable insights from everything we've had to discuss over the last 20 minutes or so. So, yeah, I just wanted to say thank you for joining us, and good luck for the rest of 2022. I'm excited to see what Playson can produce.
Likewise, Jake, it's been a pleasure talking to you, and thank you very much.